Current events, developing stories,
tough questions.
your voice making a difference.
This is Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa.
Well, whose dialogue is it anyway? As you heard in Eyewitness News, several prominent civil society organizations, many of them linked to the names of illustrious struggle stalwarts, have cited a rushed timeline, inadequate preparation, disagreements within the preparatory task team, and government control as reasons for pulling out of the much vaunted national dialogue. And it may present a serious dent to the standing and reputation of President Cyril Ramaphosa, who has championed this gathering as a significant moment for the country. Foundations named after Steve Biko, Desmond and Lea Tutu, Oliver Tambo, and even F.W. de Klerk will no longer participate, at least not in the planning phase. Most notably, the chief patron of the Thabo Mbeki Foundation, after whom it is named, is seen as the force behind getting the organization on board in the first instance, but also the reason they are objecting and pulling out. Well, to explain how all of this is going to work, we're joined, I'm pleased to tell you, by the presidential spokesperson, Vincent Magwenya. Always a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you for your time.
Good morning, Pearl, and good morning to your listeners.
Let me quote Peter Bruce to you. He wrote in yesterday's Sunday Times that no other leader of the ANC has faced a public rebellion by its political elite on this scale before, end quote. Surely these withdrawals will do significant damage to the prestige, if not gravitas, of this gathering.
No, not quite, Bongani. This national dialogue belongs to South Africans, and it's a South African national dialogue. No one has single appropriation or ownership of it. Government is only there to facilitate and ensure that it happens. It is not surprising that in the lead up to it, you have parties or entities choosing not to be part of the preparations. You will recall, Bongani, when we were heading towards CODESA, there were parties who boycotted those processes and those talks. So long as the overwhelming majority of South Africans recognize the opportunity, the importance of this national dialogue, more importantly, the National Convention as a kickoff to the actual dialogue, we're fairly comfortable that we'll be able to proceed, and the credibility of the exercise will be maintained throughout.
You've heard the arguments before. A skeptical public might say another imbizo to cost taxpayers hundreds of millions, so really the elites can discuss what ordinary folk already know?
Well, Bongani, we're a country whose foundations are founded or pillared around talking to each other. After 30 years or so, there is admittedly a degree of concern, in some quarters unhappiness, with the direction that the country is taking. And in typical South African sort of form, we are reviewing where we are and reviewing where we want to be. And the only way we can do it is to sit down and talk. This constitutional democracy that we are enjoying today is a byproduct of a dialogue process that carried us through from a very painful time of our history to where we are today. And again, in mapping the way forward, we will do that which we've done quite successfully in the past.
I'll come at it another way to you. Again, I'm going to paraphrase now a line from one of my favorite movies, As Good as It Gets, the Jack Nicholson character, who would say to you, Vincent, we're drowning and you want a meeting to discuss and describe the water.
No, and that will assume that nothing is being done to tackle the current challenges that we are facing. A lot is being done, albeit it may not be at a faster pace, it may not be as quick as people would like to see, against the scale and magnitude of the challenges that we are faced with as a country. There are a lot of positive that can be drawn out of where we are 31 years later. However, we still need to align ourselves and review our path and our direction and say, is this where we want to be? And is this constitution still serving us the way we want it to serve us? For example, there are many issues that we still need to review, and the national dialogue provides that opportunity. parallel to that, of course, government is doing the best it can with the limited resources that it has to work through these challenges.
Would you agree with the Sunday Times' characterization of part of the issues being personal tensions between the former president and your boss?
No, not quite. Not quite. Not quite. They don't always agree on issues, yes, but in this particular case, they've not even spoken about this issue. This is an issue arising out of the temporary preparatory task team, where the members of that task team could not agree on various issues, including the state of readiness and the availability of funds. But the president and former President Mbeki have not discussed this matter, and so I will not draw them directly into these issues. The president did his best to lend his ear to the members of the PTT and discuss their concerns and try and work through possible solutions. There were solutions that were presented on the table, but they didn't accept them. So I will not venture that far as the Sunday Times sought to yesterday.
Without strong civil society voices, because even though you say this belongs to all of us as South Africans, these are credible voices who come with remarkable histories of the individuals after whom they are named and whose values they promote. Without their voices, and even a sense really that they are in fact the drivers of this kind of thing, how can it succeed?
No, with all due respect, Bongani, they do not represent any significant constituencies in the country, and that's a reality. Illustrious as they may represent the founders or they may be, the reality is we have more civil society voices still involved. More foundations have come forward, foundations named or founded after struggle stalwarts who have come forward and offered their support to the PTT.
What's the price tag?
Well, Bongani, it's a moving target with the sole aim of adjusting it downwards. The president and the deputy president are quite firm on reducing the cost. We will have a sense of the real budget requirement after the National Convention, because it's the National Convention that will then determine the final roadmap of the national dialogue.
As of today, what's the price tag?
I can't give you that number, Bongani. I wish I could. Right now, we have the first tranche that is just aimed at the National Convention, and that amount has also been reduced. The rest of the national dialogue, we will be able to give you that number after the National Convention.
Sure, but what's the ballpark? Where are we playing here? Give me a sense of, the parameters.
Well, the problem is we don't know what will be the total elements that the national conventions will decide on of the dialogue. The national convention alone had been estimated around 22 million rands, but that number has been reduced significantly because of the sponsorship and the in-kind support we've been able to secure, as we've outlined in our statement yesterday.
I'm hearing hundreds of millions of rands, that the initial reduction was around 750 or thereabouts million rand, and that's now sitting at about 500?
The foundations that come up with a number over 800 million, and immediately there was no agreement around that number, and the directive that the president gave was that number must be significantly reduced, and it cannot be finalized until after the convention has concluded on the process and the roadmap of the actual dialogue.
What's the president's ceiling?
Well, he's enthused that, the foundations that have withdrawn from the preparatory purposes have committed that they will continue to participate in the national dialogue. They will continue to mobilize for participation. And he's enthused that we are there in terms of the state of readiness. If there are teething problems.
No, sorry. My question was around, you said there was an initial figure of around 800 million, which the president said must be reduced. Yes. So if he wanted it reduced, what was his ceiling? What was his figure?
No. He didn't have a ceiling in mind. He was just taken aback that there was such a huge number being bandied about, and he was not satisfied with how that number was arrived at. and instructed that that number be reviewed significantly.
Final question, if I may. You may understand how little trust there might be from the public. I mean, if monies for Nelson Mandela's funeral were abused, do you understand the skepticism of some members of the public?
Absolutely, Bongani. One will concede to that, we've lost an element of trust of the public when it comes to the spending of public funds, which is the reason why the president is insistent that all PFMA rules and regulations are adhered to, and that spending is reduced significantly.
All right. Always appreciate your time, Vincent Magwenya, the presidential spokesperson.
702.
Coming up, the big interview.
Big interview focuses on a brigadier supposedly without any formal policing training, whilst out on bail on corruption charges, has been promoted to the head of a visible policing unit. That's all to come after this Eyewitness News, brought to you by Khaliks. Khaliks, for the businessman who knows what he wants.
Current events. Developing stories.
Tough questions.
Your voice making a difference.
This is Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa.